Hello, everybody. I'm Dax Millender, and I'm joined today by Jared. Jared, what is your YouTube name?
Eagle Eye 1975.
Thank you, Jared. And he saw one of my videos, and he wanted to discuss the topic of said video. So, Jared, go ahead.
Well, the video had you started off with this whole thing about like you wanted to talk about what is life. Can you quickly just reiterate what you said so that I can tie into it?
Yes, I said the video was "Why is life?
Oh, right, right.
Why is
Go
life?
ahead.
Why do we exist? Why are we put on this earth?" And
Hmm.
for the religious beings out there, you subscribe to your own religion, whether it be to God, uh, Allah, Buddha, what have you. But it's about what you
Right,
want to live for.
right. And I'm as an atheist, I really don't subscribe to any belief system about like the purpose of life. But I think stepping away from that, you can if you start off with the philosophy of I think regardless of who you are, regardless of your religious belief or non-belief, you can I think we can all agree on a very simple statement. And this goes into kind of the argument of like how do atheists have a moral standard, a moral code? I mean, and it's an absurd question because the next logical question to a theist would be something like, okay, well, if you were to find out tomorrow that God didn't exist, would you go out and start raping and killing everyone? And most of the time they'll say, of course not. No, I wouldn't. That would just be wrong to do. Aha. So the very most basic moral statement I think that you could ever make is that life is valuable. And how do you know this? I know that I value my life, and everything it can be extrapolated from there. An entire set of morality can be extrapolated from the very simple statement of I value my life. Would you agree with that?
Well, and certain values for yourself, but a sociopath can value his life, but not the life of others.
Well, and a sociopath, though, that's kind of like citing the outliers as the mainstream. Yeah, the whole reason we have a thing called sociopathy is because we recognize that a sociopath is outside of the norm, and it is a pathology. It is it's a abnormality in a person to have them so where they would not be able to recognize that other people would feel the same as them. But the reason I wanted to talk with you about this is because you were ranting. I understand that, and you're kind of going all over the place. It was like a shotgun effect. You made a lot of great points, but they weren't coherently organized.
Yeah,
Is that fair?
oh no, that's completely fair. I did not have that scripted at all.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I've given a lot of thought. I'm sure you've heard of Ayn Rand and objectivism, right?
Yeah.
And I think people give her kind of a bad rap. I'm not. I don't necessarily subscribe to being an objectivist. I wouldn't label myself as that, but I understand where she's coming from. And it really comes from that whole philosophy of I value my life. I recognize my life is valuable to me. And because of the mental mechanics that we have as human beings, where we can imagine what other people may be thinking, and this is something that's pretty not really unique to humans, but it's very uh, it's one of our wonderful traits that we have that we can empathize our sense of empathy, and the ability to empathize allows us to say, you know what, since I value my life, it's a pretty good bet that other people value theirs as well. In fact, it would be one of those kinds of things where you would have that would have to be the default assumption that other people value their lives as well. And this is the foundation of the golden rule. I don't want people to treat me badly. I don't want people to take things from me that don't belong to them or that belong to me. I don't want people to take my stuff. I don't want people to take my time. I don't want people to take my life. So I'm going to assume that other people don't want me to do that to them as well. And that therein lies the basis for our code of laws. And the thing that just strikes me in all of this, and if you think of it as this is like an absolute morality. If you start off with just that very simple premise of I value my life and it's a good bet that other people value theirs as well, you can entirely build from that the entire argument for libertarianism.
Very good, sir. And yes, I understand completely what you're saying. And I was focusing not on solely libertarianism, but individualism versus collectivism.
Right. Well, and see, people have asked me before, are you a practical libertarian, or are you what is it? No, it's not practical. What's it? The one consequentialist libertarian, like kind of or philosophical libertarian. Like the philosophical libertarian says philosophically this is what ought to be because it is the most um, rational and logical. But the reality of life be damned.
Right,
and
Mr.
a
Exposit.
consequentialist, yeah, a consequentialist is like, okay, you know what? It may not be the ideal, but because of human nature, this is what's going to happen anyway. um, but I tend to think that the most rational, logical, philosophical libertarianism would take into consideration what human nature would be. So it would be rational and logical to be a consequentialist libertarian.
which I which I am. I mean, I went into this in one of my other videos where everyone was going on about the like you heard about that mother who drowned her children, correct?
I've heard a few different
It,
stories of that kind of stuff, but I don't know exactly which one you're talking about.
well, the point that you heard multiple, it isn't exclusive to a single story, but the collective. Those kind of things are going to happen in life, and that we
Hmm.
can't change that. I mean, even
Oh,
having a cop in every single house cannot change that
yeah.
kind of behavior.
All you end up with is the really determined people um, end up killing the cops first and then doing their misdeeds.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. That people don't want risks like that in life, and I can't understand for the life of me why. I mean, I understand it's a terrible thing when
Yeah.
children die. I mean, I get that, but that's just a part of life that if people do not learn to grow up and accept, then they're going to be living in a plastic bubble for
Well, it's a childish whim worshipping type of thing. It's like, I want the world to be perfect, so therefore we should strive to make it perfect in the face of all rational, thought. It's like, I want there to be absolutely no pain or suffering in life. You know what? That's what we can strive for, but there's a cost benefit analysis. I think that's really what it comes down to, is it's a lack of understanding of the cost of getting the benefit. So we accept a certain amount of pain and suffering in our lives because the cost of trying to prevent it would be worse than the pain and suffering we're inflicting, we would suffer through.
and that brings me to something else. When people say somebody is deserving of something, like
Hmm.
when I say no, I don't want to pay for that, they say you think they deserve that kind of pain? Whoa, why are you handing me that power? Why are you handing me that responsibility?
Well, to a certain extent, so people do deserve, people deserve the just, the results, the karmic results, if anything, of their misdeeds or of their action or inaction. If you don't work, it's like the grasshopper and the ant. The ant slaves all day, all summer, in getting all of the food and everything. The grasshopper doesn't do anything. That's called inaction. And because of his inaction, the grasshopper deserved to starve
And that's exactly
over the winter.
that's how I view
So,
it.
yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not me thinking that they deserve to starve. It is the reality of life that if you don't work, you don't eat.
And
And it's all about them. It's if they don't work, they don't eat. Thus, they deserve it. I'm not imposing a punishment on them by my inaction of saving them.
you're just letting them
No.
face the consequences of their inaction.
Exactly. It's exactly. People tend to place a positive act. It's like it is a positive act. You are actively causing them to feel the pain and suffer, and suffer the consequences of their. No, I'm not actively doing
I- In a libertarian, well,
anything. I am passively enacting.
right. And
Go ahead.
for libertarianism, we're not the thing for libertarianism is we're not getting in anyone's way. That's what libertarianism is basically about. We're not looking to impede anybody, but we're not looking to help them either, unless
Right.
we desire to, the individual desires to. No one's going to come in and force us, get in our way of happiness to force us to help someone else out. As you said, we're empathetic creatures, and we will be more than willing, if it's for a good cause that we find suitable, to give our aid to.
Right. Well, and what you're talking about fits with this quote from Bastiat. You know who that is, right?
Mm-mm.
Frederick Bastiat. He was the foundation for like um, uh, economics in one lesson. That book.
No, I'm gonna have
Have you
to
ever?
read that.
Yeah, Frederick Bastiat was a French, philosopher. He said, "Socialism, like the ancient ideas from which it springs, confuses the distinction between government and society. As a result of this, every time we object to a thing being done by government, the socialists conclude that we object to it being done at all. We disapprove of state education. Then the socialists say that we are opposed to any education. We object to a state religion. Then the socialists say that we want no religion at all. We object to a state enforced equality. They say that we are against equality, and so on and so on. It's as if the socialists were to accuse us of not wanting a person to eat because we do not want the state to raise grain." End quote. And that's exactly on point of what you're talking about here. The socialist or the social minded person, they tend to say that if the government doesn't do it, it won't ever get done. These are people that don't understand the free market. They don't understand human incentives. They don't understand how private charity actually works. If the government was not, it's like you tell them, you know what, I want to end all welfare programs. And they say, well, you just want the poor people of the world to starve. Well, that's not a necessary conclusion of ending welfare programs. It's a non sequitur. It does not follow that if you end government welfare programs, that people would then not get any sort of help from anyone.
And actually, I can attest to that. Back when I was in Idaho, I stayed at a homeless shelter that was completely run in the private sector.
hmm Well, and then people don't understand the concept of crowding out. If the government is providing all of the welfare programs, then there's no need for private charity to do it. And in fact, the government operates on a unfair competition level where they're forcing people to to give them money when the private charities have to beg for money. Literally, they beg for money in order to do their charity work. The government takes it by force, so they operate on an unfair playing field. And people are always talking about fairness. How unfair is that? The government comes in to do something and it crowds out these people that want to do it, and maybe even make a little money off of it. Maybe not a profit, not too much profit, and do a nonprofit organization, but they want to do something with their lives that's good. It's actually crowding out the good, moral people that want to help other people.
Right. And
And and they're less efficient at it. The government is less efficient at it because they don't have any need to maintain any sort of public wealth, wealth thinking, or public perception of doing good with the money. No, they can waste the money all they want because they can get the money, as much money as they want, because they have the guns. So.
and that's exactly it. Now keep in mind, I don't believe, well, okay, I do believe in the ideological left and right, but that's not
hmm
what we have. We have the low wing left and right, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
But I don't know why
But
I
what do
brought
you
that
mean
up.
by that?
I don't know why I brought that up. That was irrelevant. But on one side, you have attempted but failed perfection. On the other side, you have the best we can do. Prosperity versus control.
Yeah. See, well, I think one of the biggest lies of our time is the false dichotomy between the Democrats and the Republicans.
Oh yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest here. Um, if you were to take the entire linear political spectrum of left and right, and it would be a lot more accurate if you were to take that line and curve it upwards, where the extreme left and the extreme right come to meet as a circle. And the top there, if you're bending them upwards, and the top of that circle where the extreme left and right meet is fascism slash socialism slash collectivism slash whatever, a big government. The top is the big, the bottom is the small.
Yeah,
Limited government.
you're talking about Nolan's political chart.
Sort of, in a way. It's more circular than. Wait, are you? I'm not sure what Nolan's one is, but I'm talking like the the political um, test thing that the
Yeah,
libertarians
on the
put out.
top, on the top, and on the
Yeah,
bottom's authoritarian. That's what I mean by high wing and low wing.
yeah, exactly. Oh, high wing and low wing. Okay, I thought you had like high wing. I thought that was like all one word. But yeah. So anyway, back to the original thing though. You start off with Dax. I value my life. So, you know what? I'm going to go through my life assuming that other people value theirs, because you know what? If I do that and everyone else does that, if they all assume that we're getting into like two levels of separation here, 2 degrees of separation now. I believe that other people value their lives, and I believe that they believe that I value my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's second level of separation.
yeah, exactly.
Because of that, starting from that premise, because I value my life, and my life itself is a finite amount. I have a finite amount of time on this earth. I have a limited amount of time. I know I'm going to die sometime, but that finite amount is not known. It is an unknown finite amount. I could die tomorrow. I could die when I'm 100. I don't know. So that means the value of my time, if we knew when we were going to die, then the value becomes fixed,
Hmm.
because we know X number of minutes or seconds are left in our life, right?
Right,
But because it's unknown in duration, even though we know it's finite, every moment of our lives has an unknown value, right?
right.
Now, I can choose to invest those moments of my life in my own self-gratification. I can play a game, I can do a hobby, I can clean my house or whatever, but all of those things enrich me personally. It doesn't enrich anybody else, right?
Mm,
Unless I'm giving it as a gift to other people that live with me, for example.
and for example, and you have company over. You said play a game. You are enriching the person who created the game with your currency.
Well, that's a trade, but I'm just talking about for my own personal activity, the time. I'm just talking about time right now.
Oh, okay.
If I want to sleep in, that's my choice, and I can choose how to spend those moments of my life. It would be inappropriate for me to ask other people to spend moments of their lives enriching me, to entertain me. It would be inappropriate for me to ask for that without giving them something in return, because they are no longer living their life for themselves. I am asking that they live their life for me, and I don't have that right to make a claim on their time, because it is owned by them. They own their life, they own their body, they own their time. If I'm asking them to transfer ownership of that time and moments of their life to me, I have to compensate them for it by doing something for them, by giving some of my time. Now, this is where we end up with a barter, where it's like, you know what? I want you to entertain me. I want you to play me a song. You give me 5 minutes of your time to play me a song. You are entertaining me and enriching my life. And I am not enriching your life at all unless I give you something back. So I give you, let's say, 5 minutes of computer help, because I know how to fix computers and I'll clean up your computer. But what if you don't need your computer to be fixed? Well, you know what? It would be nice if I gave, let's say, somebody else, person C, 5 minutes computer time to help them with their computer. They give me a few tokens, these tokens that represent that amount of time and value to them. And those tokens I can build up and build up and build up, because those tokens are a representation of the amount of time that I have spent enriching the lives of others, giving of my finite, valuable time to other people to enrich their lives instead of my own. See, we don't get these tokens for doing our hobbies, because those hobbies are enriching ourselves. We don't get these tokens for mowing our own lawn, for example. But if we mow somebody else's lawn, well, we're helping them out. So they give us a token that is a recognized way in the society, where everyone recognizes that token represents that you have given value to somebody else in society, right?
Mm,
Now, follow the logic here. I now have a bunch of tokens for giving of myself to other people. Then someone else, gives something to me. I can give them those tokens. I can transfer those tokens to them, and that represents that they gave something to me of value, some of their time. So whoever has the most tokens is actually could be said to have been giving them of themselves, rather than being selfish and only self-serving. Whoever has the most tokens in society, whoever accumulates the more of these tokens for themselves, well, what does that say about them? It says that they've given more to society than anyone else. they've given value to more people in society and more value to each individual person in society than anyone else. Whoever has the most tokens has been the most the most
Beneficial.
beneficial person, has been a benefactor to other people, has given of themselves, given value to other people, and enriched other people's lives more than they've taken from society. So the positive balance of tokens, which we call money, is actually an indication of the amount of value you've put into society versus the amount of value you've taken out. Because those tokens, by having a positive balance of them, it means you've given more to society, thus they've given you more tokens in return than you have required of other people to give to you.
Right, and pardon me if I play devil's advocate for a moment.
Go
Um,
for it.
let's go with somebody like the Rothschild. You know, people who have accumulated years and years of money, but at a certain point, it didn't come from primarily hard work, but
Hmm.
from would it be investment?
Yeah.
Okay, investment. But the
Right.
offspring are the ones who inherit said money,
Right.
and they haven't, or they have not been long enough, or of this world long enough to accumulate and earn said monies or tokens.
Well, those tokens, the money that you have earned, they belong to you because they represent the time that you have given to other people, right? So instead of having the time, you've built up the money. You've invested your time, you've given away your time to other people, and in exchange, they give you money. So the money is actually a representation of your life because it's a representation of your time. And as we've established, your time is finite and it belongs to you. Right.
Right.
So if you give away your time to other people and in exchange they give you money, that money is your possession. It is your property, just like your own arm or leg. It belongs to you, and it doesn't belong to anybody else, right? No one has a claim on it. So if it belongs to you, who has the right to say what you do with it? Only you do.
Well, I was going off of you seeming to make it into a social status of the money
Well,
you
it
have.
it can be. It can be. It can be thought of that way, as a social status of showing, well, okay, let me make an amend of my statement then. The amount of money that you have, the amount of tokens you have, is an indication of how much value you've given out to society, or how much value your parents have given out, or whoever. The thing is, if you have, the whole inheritance. I know, what's his name, the big hairy dude that, like, really scary, looks like Lurch from the Munsters.
Oh man.
Really wild hair. You know who I'm talking about? Gary, Do Not God, in Mendham. Yeah, in Mendham. He had a big thing a couple of years ago, maybe a year or more ago, about inheritance and how inheritance is stupid and evil and wrong and everything. And my thinking is, you know what? That money, let's say I earn it, it's mine to give, to do with what I want. And it's kind of like I am storing up minutes of my life. I can't, like, once I'm dead, I have no more time left, right? But instead of, I've given my time while I've been alive to earning the money so that after I'm gone, I can still have my influence on the world, and I can give that possession of mine to my own children if I choose. Or I could be like Warren Buffett and give it away to charity if I choose. But whoever I give it to, it is my choice.
Right, but what I was talking about was you having the money or earning the money, because you can give money to your child,
Hmm.
but do they hold the same social status that you do simply because they have the money?
It doesn't matter. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it really doesn't matter. Um, Thing is, the other side of this is, like, if let's say let's say I make $1 million and I give $1 million to my child. Let's say, okay, I have 5 children. Let's say I make $5 million. I give $1 million to each one of them. One of them could waste it and put it back into society, and my gift to that one would be living an extravagant lifestyle until that money is all gone. So essentially, it's enriching other people for giving them the joy of having just a big freaking party for the rest of their life until the money's all gone. Right. So, okay, fine. Let that child waste it all on, having parties and, going out to clubs and, buying tons of lottery tickets and never winning or whatever. They're enriching other people because they're consuming more than they're producing. But I'm giving them the opportunity to consume rather than produce. Or rather than having to produce in order to consume, I'm giving them my productive capacity from the past, so that they don't have to do it in order to be able to consume. So they can consume more than they produce all they want, but they'll just lose all that money. Now, taking the kid number two, I give him $1 million. He puts the $1 million into investments, making 10%. He gets $100,000 a year. He only spends 50,000 of it, living modestly. So he's growing his investment by $50,000 every year. In 10 years, he's got $1.5 million. Well, actually, it's probably more than that because it'll build on itself. But
Compounding interest.
yeah, well, it'll compound because that 50,000 every year is getting 10%. So he's getting 55,000 or 50,500 the next year, 50,000, whatever. He just keeps on doing that for 10 years, and he's only spending 50,000 a year for 10 years. He's building up that money. Now, why is he making 10%? Well, he's making 10% because he's giving that money to other people, and he's deferring his consumption. He's deferring consumption and sacrificing liquidity of his assets, and sacrificing usability at that moment in order to allow other people to use it for their needs, like in business loans and investments and stuff. And that's why he gets 10%, because he's helping other people build their wealth. And so that's a service to the community as well. So he's actually, like, say, in 10 years or 9 years or whatever, he has increased his money by 50%. Well, now 1 million of that is originally from me.
Right.
He now has, let's say, 1.5 million. Then he decides to just splurge, and he spends the million just like the first kid did. So he spent that initial million 10 years later, but he still has 500,000 left. And he continues to live the way he was, where he's deferring consumption, and he builds off of his own money that he's made. He made that extra money by deferring consumption. So there's all sorts of aspects to it that people just don't understand, and it really annoys me when they're like, eat the rich. I understand that there's certain rich people out there that need, or that earned their wealth unjustly. They didn't really earn it. They used trickery, they used chicanery, they used the government to get favorable contracts. They squeezed out competition on using the force of law and the guns that the government has, but or force, fraud, and coercion. Maybe they got it by fraud. So those people absolutely do not deserve to have the money that they have. And it, because they were actually stealing. It's theft by one means or another. But it on the most basic level, without all of these outliers and what ifs, I own my life. Thus, I own my time. My time is finite. My time is unknown. So this unknown finite time that I own, when I give it to other people, I earn compensation for it. That compensation is now my property. That property I can do with whatever I want, and that property is an indication of how much I've given to society. It's an indication. It's not a hard and fast rule. It is an indication of how much I've given. And if someone looks at me and says, wow, you earned all that money, they should be praising me to high heaven for how much value I've given to society. Because you know what? The only way I have that money is if I traded it with somebody else. They gave me the money for something that they valued more than the money they gave me. They, in a free market, they want the service that I provide, or the product that I provide in exchange for that money, more than they want the money. So to them, everyone wins. I get the money that they don't want in exchange for the product that I'm giving them. And if I have 10,000 of a product, I only need one, and you can rest assured I'm going to take one out of my own inventory for myself. So now I have 99,000 of them, or whatever, and or 9,999. So I sell those 9,999 because I don't need them. They are not of very much value to me. I'm selling it to other people for the amount that those other people value it at. And so I make my money, and awesome, great. They benefit, I benefit. My money is now an indication of how much value I've given to the rest of society, because I'm not getting use out of those 99,000 items or whatever, 900, you know, I'm not getting use out of them. Other people are. Those other people thus have had their lives enriched by my product. So all the money I make, awesome. I made the money, and now and then people come around and they say, you know what? I don't think you deserve all that money. Says who? Says who? You know, who the fuck are you to come into this situation, where me and all my 10,000 customers, I made a contract with each and every one of them, 10,000 different contracts where I sold 10,000 items to 10,000 individual people. And now you, Mr. 10,001, who weren't involved in any of these contracts, you say that I don't deserve to have made all of that extra money because for some reason you think I was maybe gouging people, or you don't value the thing that I was selling as much as the people that were actually my customers. Well, you know what? If you don't think it's worth that, nobody's forcing you to buy it from me. But these other people thought it was worth that, and you may think that they're dupes. You may think that they're stupid, but they're enjoying it. So who the fuck are you to come into these 10,000 different one-on-one contracts with these 10,000 other people and say that they were wrong? So it's an astounding amount of hubris to be able to say all these 10,000 people were duped by you. They were too stupid to realize just how valueless your product was. No, they probably weren't that stupid. You're just thinking, you just don't have the same value structure. How arrogant is it for you to come in and tell me that my work isn't worth as much as I'm charging for it? You have no right to tell me what my life is worth or the product of my labor. No. So this third party mentality of being able to come in and say, you know what, that oil company made a shit ton of too much profit. They're making way too much money. Who the fuck are you to say that? It's none of your goddamn business, right?
All right.
So, end of rant.
All right, man. I'm afraid we've hit our 34-minute mark. You want to wrap it up?
I think I just did.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. I'm Daxon Islander, and this is Jared.
Yep.
All right.
I'll see you later.
See you later.